Here.
Ms. Cobb?
Here.
Mr. Dinkenberger?
Here.
Ms. DeSenza?
Here.
Mr. Hartnett?
Yes.
Ms. Knowles?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Steinhoff?
Here.
Mr. Sudbrink?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Wheelock?
Here.
Mr. Whitney?
Here.
Mr. Wilcox?
Nope.
Ms. Briggs?
Here.
We'll find the minutes of June 26th to approve.
Motion approved.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Privilege of the floor, we have 10 people signed up tonight, so according to our rules of order, they'll have 3 minutes apiece. Our first speaker is Ms. Allison King, to speak to agenda item number 18 and number 7.
Good evening. I'll start with number 18, the resolution regarding fracking. As you should know, Cortland County doesn't have jurisdiction over whether fracking occurs here. It's a state decision and a town decision. So I'm here to ask our county legislature to focus on doing something that is within the legislature's purview. And I request that this model legislation to ban fracking waste be included in the minutes and be considered by the legislature. This would relate to sale, application, disposal of waste associated with oil and natural gas. Examples would be, we don't want that brine on our streets. We don't want to drive through those toxins. Or our wastewater treatment plant now only bans untreated waste, and it doesn't define treated. So it could just be adding lime to change the pH. That doesn't protect the Tiafniocus, Susquehanna down, all the way down to the Chesapeake from the radioactivity and chemicals that are in fracking waste. So I ask that the legislature consider this model legislation. And I know that at least one committee did discuss this in the past. And then the second thing is a bit related to 18 and 7. I had suggested at a committee meeting earlier this week that the committee or the legislature consider establishing a citizens advisory committee. Individual committees can also establish advisory committees. The legislature is encountering a lot of issues that are highly technical in nature, and it may be helpful to tap into expertise that we have locally. One example is the Resolution 7, where we would contract out for modeling relating to ash for trash and alternatives. I was able to get the 3-page proposal. I think we will be better served if people who are involved in these kinds of negotiations, reviewing these proposals, have the background to do it. There's some things that just jumped out at me. It doesn't spell the deliverables. So if they're going to develop 4 models, is this an unprotected Excel sheet so that we can go in and, as we get new information, update the inputs? Does the 10 grand involve training our staff, or are we going to be going to Barton & Judas and environmental capital at $200 an hour each time we have new information? They also, one of the things is going to be flow control, but when they look at the data sources, they don't mention interviewing or other ways to get data on our current homeowners who are falling to sites outside the county.
Thank you, Ms. King. Your time is up. Our next speaker is Ms. Pam Jenkins of Cortland, also to speak to agenda items number 7 and 18.
Legislators, this financial modeling should have been done a year ago or more. And very importantly, all financial information needs to be part of the scope, the draft environmental impact statement, and the environmental impact statement. It was taken out of the formal scope. It needs to be put back in. For a year, ash dump proponents have been telling us that the ash dump project will be a great deal for Cortland, but all this time, they have concealed all financial details of the project, including details of the draft contract that they have signed with Okra. This resolution to dump yet more money into the fatally flawed project plainly illustrates that proponents do not have a clue as to what the financials are or even how to model them. We're not, let's see, I'll skip around a little since I have a limit of much less than is usually allowed in other legislatures around the state. But of course financial details are important, but they are still absent in this late stage of the game. And again, they were excluded from the final scope. We request these things if the resolution passes today. We request that the models will be supplied as unprotected Excel documents and they will be immediately available to citizen experts, interested parties, and our lawyers for their review and use. That any spending beyond the $10,500 to environmental capital becomes the subject of a resolution and an agenda item to be voted on by the entire legislature. This just can't be an open-ended contract that we just keep pouring money to environmental capital. We have several other questions. Why were no other alternatives to the ash dump being modeled, such as radical recycling? Why isn't Onondaga County paying for part of these studies? Okay, and then what I'm going to hand Jeremy is a pile of, documents. One of them is the Cortland County Health Department's input that was removed from the final scope. It's not included at all in the final scope. It needs to be. And then 5 pages of citizen comments that were not addressed in the scope at all. And that's just for starters. So there we go. Okay. Okay. What I gave Jeremy was the Cortland County Health Department recommendations that were excluded from the final scope. They need to be in the scope and the DEIS and the EIS. Also, I gave Jeremy 5 pages of citizens' issues that were submitted that were not addressed by the scope. Clearly the final scope was written, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and did not address any of the input given by the citizens of Cortland County. Okay.
Ms. Jenkins, your time is up.
Okay, and then this last thing I'm giving you is the major scientific document shows why New York fracking moratorium is imperative.
Our next speaker is Ms. Lee Miller to speak to agenda item number 7.
Jeremy, I'm going to pass for now. I need to give it to somebody else. Thank you.
Next speaker is Joanne Hayes of Cortland to speak to agenda item number 7.
Is it possible for me to give my time to Pam?
Oh yeah, could I give mine?
I'm sorry.
Well, the last time I was in this room, I don't know if you can hear me, I'm not sure. The last time I think I was in this room was for chemistry class. And I know many of you. And it's my hope that since I have limited knowledge, but am here as a citizen of this community, that you will all ask the right questions and read and learn everything you can so that our water can remain safe. I heard everyone in the room clapping for the woman who received accolades for breastfeeding. If you don't have clean water, we won't have anything. So on behalf of citizens that I represent who don't know as much as Pam and some of the other people here, I just hope that you will ask the right questions, and especially to follow the advice of the Cortland County Health Department, who suggested a health impact analysis be done on ash for trash. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Robert Packer of Syracuse to speak to agenda item number 7.
Thanks for your hospitality. want to just appear very briefly and alert you to the possibility of using plasma gasification technology to destroy toxic chemicals without any toxic residue. All of the planning that's gone into all these projects for many years assumes burial. Looking at the history of the Onondaga County Superfund project there at Onondaga Lake, which consists of thousands of pages, there's not a single reference anywhere to the possibility for using plasma gasification technology. The technology has been developing rapidly in the last 20 years. I've developed a personal list of vendors active here in North America, and I've been winnowing the list down to make it more and more realistic, so we can get down to maybe a final half a dozen that are the ones that ought to be interviewed. So I've been in some contact with them. So now you're looking at a modeling project here, and you're going to allocate some money to do it. And all I'm really saying here to you tonight is to ask the modeling people to incorporate this concept within the modeling, and I'm happy to interface with them so that you've got this avenue at least open to you as an option going forward. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay, thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mr. John Hayes of Cortland to speak to agenda item number 7.
I just want to say that lived here almost all my life, was born here, to school here. I'm concerned along with Pam Jenkins and many others too that really support her and very concerned about the basic research that's been done and maybe some lack of looking at alternatives. I would encourage everybody here to keep an open mind and to look at other ways that maybe this problem can be solved. And if you really come to the conclusion it can't be, then you really need to have detailed information and get all the resources, get a health impact assessment, get all these things that can affect the people and yourselves in Cortland County before you act. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ms. Chris Applegate of Cortland to speak to agenda item number 18.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Change this up a little bit. At the Court of Appeals hearing in June, thanks, great, perfect, which upheld the right of municipalities to decide whether fracking fits their land use visions, Chief Judge Jonathan Littman said, "You don't bulldoze over the voice of the people in an individual municipality that wants a say in how they live their lives." As a Town of Virgil councilperson, I agree. It is a right and a duty of towns and villages to decide this matter. It is not necessarily the right of the Cortland County Legislature. If you took the time to read the Health Impacts Compendium that my husband Bob Applegate sent to you, you know now that health impacts across the nation have been pervasive, underdocumented, and under-researched. How can a county pass a resolution that says, "Enough study already," when evidence continues to mount? What gives the legislature the right as individuals or as a legislative body to send this kind of message to the state of New York? Some of you have described this as an innocuous resolution. If this is the case, then why send it? Because implied in the resolution is that Cortland County is ready to be fracked. Can you really say that you speak for the residents of the county? Did you know, for instance, that Preble has banned fracking, that both Cortlandville and Homer are studying this issue very carefully, and that 740 voting residents of Virgil petitioned to ban fracking in our town? In fact, 50% of upstate New York residents, according to many recent Siena polls, oppose fracking, 50%. Can you honestly say that this resolution speaks for all of your constituents? This is the question for you tonight, and I urge you to really think about this before you vote. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Megan Nagel of Cortland to speak to agenda item number 7.
Good evening.
As a member of the Jail Service Committee and also recently as an appointed election inspector, I want to applaud you for your commitment to public service, and I also enthusiastically endorse Alison King's idea of a Citizens Advisory Committee, and perhaps make it a joint Citizens Advisory Committee that would include my colleagues at SUNY Cortland and the Public Health Department, economics, geology, physics, for starters, to look at economic modeling, something you would like to outsource. And I would suggest we could actually save $10,000. And because as professors, we actually are encouraged to do public service. And we would, as you have worked with others of my colleagues in the geography department, and other departments would encourage you to think of that direction. And I would like to read into the record today a letter from June 13th, 2014 to Jeremy Boylan by the Cortland County Health Department. You recall that I've asked about the Health Department's statements. They have obliged, and I could not see that in the documents, the scoping documents. And I think it's absolutely critical, as was shared before, in terms of the health impact assessment that needs to be looked at. And that would also affect the kind of economic modeling that you want to contract out. They're particularly concerned about the potential impacts of the water resources. The EPA designation explicitly shows the recharge area to be part of the sole source aquifer designation. As such, any rule applying to the sole source aquifer also applies to this recharge area. This should be incorporated into evaluations performed under the EIS. Potential failure of the liner system should be considered, and a monitoring and mitigation strategy should be developed. Public water supply systems in this department should be included in the process. Concerning public health, they write, the scoping document fails to provide for the evaluation of the potential impacts on public health. The potential impact cannot be feasibly evaluated using findings of the most recent community health assessment as proposed. A health impact assessment is recommended. This type of evaluation, as recommended by the CDC in the reference attachment, should be used for a project of this magnitude. The document would go hand in hand with the EIS and consider health factors in all decisions. A description of this process and protocols is described on the CDC's website. Collected leachate should be evaluated as a potential health impact for metals and organics known to be in the ash residue prior to disposal. And they sign Catherine Foyan, Director of Public Health, and also Michael Ryan, the Director of Environmental Health.
Our next speaker is Mr. Todd Miller of McGraw to speak to agenda item number 18.
Good evening. 4 years ago, I was a member of the Cortland County Resources Council, where I was chair of the Aquifer Committee. And at that time, we formed a special committee to review the DEIS drives. On that committee was Marjorie Ronaldo, co-owner of Geologic out of Homer, a hydrologic consultant group, Liz Cameron, John Anderson, from Cortland County Health Department, Steve Pendergraft, owner of CSI Chemical Laboratory, myself, and other experts. We read through the SGIS and submitted our list of comments to DEC highlighting a number of shortcomings. We were not anti-frackers. We were a group who wanted to see that fracking happens, it is done right, and would not have detrimental effects on health, safety, and infrastructure. And recently, our group received an award from an anti-fracking organization, which we turned down. I explained to them we were not anti-frackers. Our group and many others noted that one of the most critical elements that was missing was the effects on health and safety in the SGIS. And in 2012, the Department of Health convinced the DEC an investigation was sorely needed before releasing the SGIS. In 2011, there were only a handful of health studies available. Then a few other had been trickling in over time. In 2014, the journal Environmental Science Technology concluded that regarding health issues and fracking, the current scientific literature puts forward that there is both substantial concerns and major uncertainties to address. However, because the reason for the lack of data is mostly due to gas companies who aggressively hamper the access to information, like restricting the ability of scientists to get close to work sites, undemocratic gag rules, and refusal to disclose chemicals in fracking operations. Another major aspect we pointed out was that DEC was not equipped manpower-wise, equipment-wise to oversee hydrofracking. And this recently came born to be true a few days ago by an audit by the Department of Auditor General, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which blasted the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for not being prepared to oversee many aspects of hydrofracking. I encourage you to read the executive summary of the audit. I don't have time to do that. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is ask these questions. Did members of the committee read the SGS? Did they submit comments? If yes, they should be on record. Did the members of the committee research results of recent fracking health studies? If yes, ask what they indicate. Did members of the committee consult with local or state health departments regarding the time it takes to design, conduct, and publish health studies? Remember, the health department requested to investigate the effects of fracking on health in 2012, just 2 years ago. You take a lot more time to do some of your studies and investigations to publish. 2 years is a drop in a bucket for health studies.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Final speaker tonight is Ms. Mary Gilby of Cortland to speak to agenda items number 18 and number 7.
Good evening, and again, thank you for accepting our comments, listening to our comments, and I hope that there will be more open discussion of some of these resolutions than there was at the Agriculture, Environment, and Planning Committee a couple of weeks ago when a number of people presented some of the same issues that have been discussed tonight. Because I felt that we are not experiencing open government in this county, in this legislature, I decided to go to a technical argument rather than a rational argument. And I went to the rules of order. And the definition of a resolution, in part, is to express the sense of the legislature on a matter having to do with the operation of Cortland County government. Nowhere in the resolution, which constitutes the agenda item 18, nowhere in the proposed resolution is there any matter mentioned that has to do with the operation of Cortland County government. So therefore, I repeat my desire, my prompting the legislature to defeat item 18. Thank you.
Motion, Mr. Hartnett, agenda item number 7, authorize agreement, environmental capital, solid waste.
Second.
Discussion?
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I was contacted and asked if I could possibly express my my feelings on this, and being asked to makes me feel that I need to do that. I understand that, yes, $10,000, that's a lot of money, but I do feel that by going to a third party, it does get rid of some bias, instead of having anyone right here with us deciding to do the financial models. I also feel that whether or not ash for trash happens, this is financial information that I feel we need to know. How recycling is going to affect our solid waste management plan, how if, let's say, we have to go to flow control, how is that going to affect us? Not going to flow control, how is that going to affect us? I feel we need to know every financial detail of what's happening. And I'm not saying that there's nothing left out of this. I'm sure it's very possible that there's information that maybe we haven't asked for that maybe we should. And there's always an opportunity to rethink it if we need to. and ask them, we need this information. There's new light on other matters and we need to find that information. We will add it to it. But I do feel that it's in the county's best interest, it's in the people's best interest to have a unbiased third party look at our financials and make sure that we are making the best decision for everyone, so that we're not just wasting money all over the place. We need to know how the money is going to be spent, where it's going, how we're going to have to use it in every scenario. Because if we don't know, it's like saying, I'm going to go buy a boat, but I don't know how much money I have to do it, or how much it's going to cost to keep it. And that is not very wise planning at all. So I am definitely in support of this resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Knowles.
I agree with Ms. Knowles completely. This legislature is going to be being asked to make some really difficult decisions in the solid waste area. If we want to go to extra trash, we want to do flow control. We've engaged a engineering firm who's doing the environmental studies for us, but we don't have a good handle on the finances. And I think we need to have that in place before we make decisions. So I'm supporting this resolution.
I would like to say that since the highways had having an audit being completed, we should have up-to-date data to put in with this to make this a true study. So I'm definitely in favor.
Anyone else? Well, you all know I support this fully, brought this to you. This was a promise made on a very big project that we're considering. I'd like to clear up one thing in particular. This legislature has been accused of signing an agreement. I'm going on record publicly to say there is no signed contract with Onondaga County or Okra. There's nothing signed. As a matter of fact, this is the other part of the study to go along with the financial impacts of this potential agreement, which is also very important for us to make a final decision. We have many steps to go through to get there. This is a very important one. So let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
On motion of Mr. Troy, agenda item number 15, transfer of county property to Village of McGraw, Cortland County Planning Department.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
On motion of Mr. Troy, agenda item number 16, supporting an application for state assistance payments under the New York State Department of Agriculture and Market Farmland Protection Implementation Program to purchase development rights on Gary and Christine Slade's Peaceful Valley Farm, town of Homer and Scott, Cortland County Planning Department.
Second.
Discussion.
I've been talking with some of the caucuses. I realize there's some people who do not know a lot about the Farmland Protection Program. So I've asked Mr. Deneen if he'd come up and answer some questions if any legislatures have it. Thank you, Dan.
Sure. The program is essentially the landowner would relinquish the development rights on their property to the county. The county will hold a conservation easement on it. So the property owner retains the property and can continue to use it for agricultural purposes, but there will be no other development other than agriculture on the property.
Now, Dan, I also understand we hold 3 of these.
Yes,
currently.
that's correct.
And these 2 particular ones are being approached through the committee a little differently. The committee supported the being the sponsor of these. However, we are going to be allocating stewardship to the land trust.
Correct. Upon completion of the project, the conservation easement being finalized, the easement would be turned over to the New York Agricultural Land Trust.
And there's going to be The committee approved the resolution that way, although the printed copy does not reflect that because it happened after this was printed, but that is how the resolution will read.
There will be a clause in there that the application is contingent upon your agricultural land trust's acceptance of the easement.
On both of these.
On both of this and the next resolution.
Mr. Rich?
How does this affect the mineral rights ownership of the land?
The mineral rights? Any activity such as development of mineral rights would have to be approved by the easement holder, which is the county in this case, until it's turned over to New York Agricultural Land Trust, and then they would have the say on that.
Any other questions for Mr. Devine? Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
A motion, Mr. Troy, agenda item number 17, supporting an application for state assistance payment in the New York State Department of Ag and Markets Farmland Protection Implementation Program to purchase development rights on William and Jean Underwood Farm in the town of Fresno, Cortland County Planning Department.
And this is the same resolution, just different property owners.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
A motion, Mr. Troy, agenda item number 18, resolution calling upon the governor and the New York State Department of Conservation to complete the environmental review of hydraulic fracturing and issue findings.
Okay, I do want to advise every legislator, with advice from the county attorney, that if you hold a gas lease, that you should disclose that prior to voting. You may or may not abstain from voting because of that. I would like to say that I do, with my husband, currently hold a gas lease that is currently in effect. And so I want to disclose that, and I'm going to be abstaining from the vote. And if anybody else has an active gas lease or any connection to one, would you like to disclose that now? Ms. Price?
I would like to disclose, but can I make a comment also?
Absolutely.
Okay. This resolution negatively polarizes our citizens and this legislature on a subject where we have no authority. This is a state and then a town decision, not a county decision. With that said, this resolution is before us to vote A or nay. I do not want to encourage a decision that isn't fully explored, thus I will be voting no. I also need to disclose that I have relatives, business partners, and myself have either had or have had gas leases.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Dendenberger?
I also have
Speak into them.
I also supposedly have a gas lease that was supposed to be expired, and I'm told that whatever date's on there doesn't matter. Somehow they're exempt from ever having any expiration date on anything. I don't quite understand how that exemption happens, but supposedly I signed up for a period of time that expired 2 or 3 years ago, but I want to make that plain that however I vote, that should be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else need to disclose? Okay, any further discussion on this? Mr. Jordan.
My name is on the resolution, and buck stops here. I was one of the legislators that was guilty, I guess, of saying that I thought the resolution was inaccurate, and I really still feel that way. This is surely just a pure symbolic gesture. We're asking New York State to hurry up and conclude their studies. We're not voting pro-fracking, we're not voting con-fracking, and as I said, I still feel it's innocuous. So there are people who disagree with me, and I'll be voting yes on this just because I feel I need more information before I am forced to vote either yea or nay on fracking issues. And Mr. Sudbrink was the sponsor of the resolution, so I'm going to call upon him to say a few words.
said what I was going to, but 14 months ago, our governor said that the health study would be done in a few weeks.
Mr. Sutton, can you talk into the microphone?
Yes. 14 months ago, our governor said that the health study would be done in a few weeks, not several months. And when asked when a decision would be made, he said he wasn't sure, but definitely before the election. Now, we've only got 3.5 months left. All we're doing is asking him to keep his word. If he's going to ban it, tell us why. And if he's going to lift the ban, tell us why. You know, everybody keeps saying it's a town decision. Well, we represent our towns. And any way that I feel that I can help the town that I represent, the 4 towns I represent, I'm going to try to do that. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Ready to vote?
I request roll call, please.
Absolutely. Roll call vote.
Mr. Boyden? No. Mr. Bushnell?
No.
Ms. Cobb?
No.
Mr. Dankenberger?
Yes.
Ms. DeSenza?
No.
Mr. Hartnett?
No.
Ms. Knowles?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
No.
Mr. Snyder?
No.
Mr. Steinhoff?
No.
Mr. Suffering?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Wheelock?
Yes.
Mr. Whitney?
No.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Mr. Briggs?
Abstain.
Motion fails with a weighted vote of 20,776.
Jeremy?
Next, motion to resolution by name on it. I was not at that meeting, but I was